All right, so after all that, Oren will lead a discussion on why Angular is dead. So it should be a quick talk.
So it's pretty crappy presentation. It's many text-based. But you have to prepare something fancy with pictures of cats. So it will be asking cats. So I have a lot of links. So if you guys are curious about some of the stuff I'm going to say, just go on the links and whenever you have time, just take a look and learn about the stuff. So this Angular is original code, right? So Nico, and you can always just go to this link, which is a podcast, and we talked about what I wanted to build is something very easy to the designers to put something and do something interactive on the page, right? And for prototype, that was the original goal. Obviously, it changed a little bit because we got a lot of adoption, and Google also internally using it a little bit. So it's a big community. So now it's not just for designers, but it still has in its core, right? That's how it started. So just nice to be aware of the. So then I started to read about what people say, and the first link I saw is this guy who using Angular for a good amount of years, 2-3 years. And he talks about this stuff. And the verdict is AngularJS is good enough for majority of the project, but it's not good enough for professional web app development. And he said, "Can." It's pretty cool. So he says it's good for basic product, or started to just prototype and throw it away, or for slow corporations that move slowly. And this kind of piqued my interest because I was kind of into the Angular bandwagon a while ago. I did basic stuff with it. I'm not very expert into it. I got into directed and got scared from the terminology. But yeah, that's kind of like this guy. And then this is a good one, review of Angular. I have this link here. Unconventional review, right?
What year was it written?
25th, yeah, a few days ago.
Okay.
Oops. Basically, he kind of like gives us like, I think everybody should think about those parameters when you decide, like maybe I'll ask you guys, why did you choose Angular? Throw out the ideas, like, or the reason.
Easy to use.
Two-way binding.
Starts with
Two-way
A,
binding.
binding.
Starts with A, easy to use.
Testing.
Testing, yeah.
You like the testing? How do you test Angular?
First
Karma?
Angular.
No, seriously, how do you test Angular?
Yeah,
Karma. So you have to use a tool, dedicated tool. Can you do console flow within Karma?
Yeah.
You don't have to dump something like
No, you need to console log.
Okay. I was working with Daniel at YP, and he told me, "Oh, we can't do console log. You gotta do dump." I'm like, "Are you pooping now? Why are you doing dump?" But anyway, you guys are using a dedicated framework for testing. What does it do? Is it running like Phantom.js or Selenium?
Actually, the truth is Karma is just the runner. Either it's using Jasmine or it can use any other.
Does it require to use Phantom.js?
It doesn't require, you plug in whatever you want.
Okay, cool. So you are limited to a single tool that was written by who? Google?
Initially, yes.
Okay, cool.
I mean,
Angular
you can use others. Like there's like a Jasmine test runner or whatever. Like there are other ways that you could do it, but Karma is right now is the forerunner, the winner. But there are other options. It's like really one and two. Yeah, sure.
Okay, but the majority of using Karma. That's cool. Anyway, that's the lock-in stuff I'm talking about, right? The first parameter. When you decide to upgrade to a new version, Angular 2.0, anybody? How smooth will it be? How is the switch going to happen? Can you upgrade to 2.0?
Make it easier by starting
you gotta
now.
rewrite your code, right?
From the factor.
I mean, isn't that a question that should be answered in 2 years when it actually comes out? I mean, they're gonna put out like 3 different versions and they're talking internally about an upgrade path. It just seems like an odd way to pose that question.
Okay, so.
Also, I don't
You don't
understand
think
how
there's any
you
lock-in?
where you lock in.
Huh?
You know, what do you choose? Backbone? That's like locking in. What do you choose? Like, that's another form of locking.
I agree with you. So we gotta find an alternative. That's what. Yeah.
But you're locked into that alternative though, right?
Yeah, it depends on what is the alternative and how much involved this alternative is in your workflow. Every second I'm spending in any documentation which is not the core technologies, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it's a waste of my life. That's how I see it. I want to minimize the time I spend wasting my life, right? I want to take my kids for walks, and I want to learn better about JavaScript. I want to get better.
Practice yourself.
What?
Go back straight TCP. Why are you doing anything but emitting your own TCP packet?
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you. In assembly.
Everybody sets the limits, right? My limit is like, I stopped at like HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. I try to stay with those three core technologies. But you're
Very
right,
high level.
some hardcore people will tell you, yeah, I need to go lower. I tell you how to go
I've
lower.
been using Ember. I've been using Ember for like the last month. I got hired to do a job in Ember. I have used Ember before. Ember.js.
I have not used them.
Well, it's like I think it's Angular's like main competitor basically.
Yeah, I know
And,
what it
but it's horrible. It's like so much worse than Angular. You spend like 100 times more time in the
How much time
documentation.
did you spend, how much time in hours did you spend on AngularJS?
The last 2 years.
Whatever, your entire life, I don't care.
I know, but that's not how much time I spent. That's not how much time I spent learning it. That's how much time I spent building applications in it. And I would say that Ember, I spent so much more time trying to, because I can't, like, every time I try to do it, Ember doesn't work. It's like,
Trying to get it to
it's
work.
like they redefine all the primitives, they've like thrown out JavaScript and they built their own new thing. In comparison, I can do things in regular JavaScript and Angular and it works.
You call that regular JavaScript?
I do regular JavaScript and Angular. I use jQuery and Angular like an asshole.
Look at them in
Like,
What is it factory? Are you a Java developer? Why don't you use service?
I
It's
was
a function
saying,
of many
like,
HTTP codes.
it's in the comparison. In comparison, it's just this is so much better than what the alternative is. Like the alternative, like until I knew what Ember was like I kind of hated things that Angular. I don't like directives. I don't like how directives work. But until I used Ember, I didn't realize how much better, how much worse it could be.
Your argument is for pure JavaScript, right? No framework.
No. My argument is when we choose a framework, we gotta think why we're choosing a framework and let him set of
We thought about that. You think about that when you're choosing your framework,
Yeah.
right?
I've used Backbone, Ember, and Angular on like on real applications, and like Angular came out to me as like the clear winner. Like, I mean, Backbone's okay; it'll get the job done, and I wouldn't object to using it on another project. But Angular is easier to use. It's you can compartmentalize things.
Right.
You don't with
There's a discussion, by the way, about
with
There's
Backbone.
three things. It's basically, the fact is the timing, because there are some really not nice hotshot frameworks that are coming out right now that nobody's heard of, that you could try out, and you can spend 2-3 weekends to learn them. They might take the place of Angular because they're lighter, they're faster, and they but at the time when you make these decisions, they didn't exist, or they weren't ready for prime time.
What I want to do is,
And Angular has testing framework built in.
Yeah.
It was the full, like,
Right.
it was the Ruby.
so what I want to do right now, okay, is just to open your eyes to other alternatives / technologies / communities, right? I'm not saying dump Angular, right? So yeah, I guess it will be, slower than that.
Every
Comment number one.
tool has a place.
So that's the parameters, right? Lock in how opinionated the architecture is, the accidental complexity, testability, and server-side rendering.
But you will probably move away from Angular.
Server-side rendering.
Eventually. Everyone in here thinks that they're not gonna move away from it, but I'm pretty sure that.
No, it's gonna become JavaScript.
You'll move away from
That's what
whatever.
it's
I mean, if you're working in Node today, there's gonna come a time when you're not using Node anymore. Like everything evolves.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Like
like
sooner than you think, because there's some new stuff coming down that's
So-
pretty impressive.
Basically, it gave like very, very bad score to all of the criteria, right? Lock in, set boom, smiley, whatever it is.
Opinionated.
Opinionated.
That article's opinionated.
yeah.
Accidental complexity. I don't know, like digest loop, watching. What is this stuff? What is the fly? I don't know what it is. What is this stuff? Latin? I don't know what it is.
You gotta learn Angular.
Stability.
It's a toss up, and
Just
it's not true.
Render side, server side, rendering on server side. That's SEO, just performance for first page hit, right? First time your server is being hit.
That's why you put everything in the NG view, right? You put your basic stuff in there. I learned that here somewhere.
So, basically that's it. So that's more good read. You get the idea. That's a good one. Popularity of not this guy, but this one. Popularity-driven development, right? So there's the stuff coming from Google. Now it's coming to React. It's coming to Facebook, right? Who are those guys? Big companies, a lot of budget to go to conferences and give talks. Five guys at Facebook are working on this framework, right? I don't know how many working with whoever the Angular guy. So they have marketing power that smaller guys don't have, right? And they're in the right place. They're in Silicon Valley. They're in Mountain View, right? And they're the guys who tell us how we should kind of like write code, right? That's kind of like a criticism about popularity, and I really like is the one. Okay, I'll skip this one. That's a great website. There's actually a private community. I'm not kidding. You still stuff from like yesterday, right? So, where is it? Where is it?
And
Here. I hate AngularJS. This one more. Yeah, it's pretty recent, 9 days ago.
They need to learn their framework, that's all.
So
They
it's
need
good
to
stuff.
learn.
It's good stuff. I learned a lot from them.
So I would argue that if anything, there's probably too many frameworks coming out.
I agree.
I think we should
I'm getting it.
focus on 2 or maybe even 3.
I hate programming, but I have to keep doing it.
Anybody heard about
I'm just saying.
I sent a tweet I saw on Twitter to my team yesterday morning, I think. It was something about like that.
Washing
We're in
your
a
car.
state, we're in a state of development.
Oh, yeah.
If we're like washing a car with bread. It doesn't make sense, but we're using awful tools. None of the team members.
It's just what we have. I think it's like that's what.
I mean, I love Angular. I think it's an awesome tool. And Angular 2's and even.
Anybody heard about React or Flux?
Yes.
Anybody know what it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
So React is like came from Facebook. It has virtual DOM. It's super speed. It's supposed to be awesome. It's all components.
You're locked in though. You're locked in. You're locked in. You're locked
Yeah,
in.
in a way.
Does it have a testing framework? Is it a testing framework?
No, because it's just JavaScript. It just test JavaScript. Don't any framework test it.
JSX.
That's a less of a login, right? You need to test JavaScript as opposed to test, I don't know.
It has JSX in it.
JavaScript.
Yeah.
You don't have, yeah, you can use it. And Flux is the architecture that lets you do it.
So now there's an architecture behind this too?
Exactly.
Oh, come on
It's
now.
complex.
Oh, man.
If you don't use Flux, you need to like manage yourself the flow of the information. Flux give you the
I just want to use JS, HTML,
direction,
and
single
that's
direction
it.
for your flow. So you need to use both.
Set timeouts.
There's also Riot.
Yes, there's right, and I have. So that's kind of like that's the idea of like.
You didn't even bring up Meteor yet.
Look, hold on. So that started going on React, and not just React. Many virtual DOM frameworks. Anybody doesn't know what virtual DOM framework means? I'm sure some of them. The idea of virtual DOM is that the time you spend mainly in JavaScript or in your website is on rendering the DOM. So we're trying to minimize rendering the DOM. So what they're doing is they create a representation of the DOM in memory. So it's a tree. It's really a tree of your DOM. Every time you make a change, right? You make a change and go to these components. This is that can be React or whatever framework. There's a component gets all your events, and then it changes the state. And then the state creates another virtual DOM with your change in it. And then you can compare those two virtual DOMs. And if nothing changed, nothing happened. But if something changed, there's a diff going on. There's it's very, very fast. JavaScript is way faster than manipulating the DOM. And if there's change between those trees, then they apply this change in the patch operation, and they know exactly when in the loop, in the event to apply it. So it's fast. That's why Facebook is fast, right? So that's kind of like the idea. So it's unidirectional. So that's Flux plus React will give you this one directional flow.
And if you couple it with something like Firebase or something, you've got that effect, that coupling that works from. Okay, all right, or a data store of some point. I mean, you get my point though. Like, but the idea is that like some of the cool candy that you get with AngularJS, which is the data binding, where you have these instantaneous changes that happen across the network. Same thing that happened with Meteor. You get that same effect with this,
Yeah, and you can see that the benefits is like you don't need templates, it's very performant, no DOM manipulation, and server-side rendering, because it's just like a JavaScript that spits up a virtual DOM, right? And this virtual DOM transfers into DOM, so you can spit out this virtual DOM on your server. So that's why the unidirectional approach getting a lot of momentum now. And now came up a bunch of like micro frameworks, and I say micro. It's micro virtual DOM framework. So all of those guys, there's more. They're using virtual DOM in their embedding somewhere, right? This guy is mithril, it's very fast, it's using also has a little bit of an Ajax.
Well, we're trying to write a game? I don't get it. Why do we need to be like that fast? I don't get it. What's the point?
Oh, scalability.
I mean, it's always nice to be faster. What's wrong with being fast?
I mean,
I want maintainability and fast. That's what I want.
yeah, I mean, but if we're talking milliseconds here,
I'll show you something.
No,
You know what I mean?
if you compare AngularJS on a mobile browser, 3G, you're gonna get 4 seconds on the first page hits. 4 seconds on a mobile browser, that's unacceptable.
what are you
Compared
trying
to-
to, what are you trying to do?
compared to
It's
1
all-
second.
What are you trying to do though, right? It all depends on the tool for the job, I think,
Sure,
right?
but it's not that you're losing maintainability. I think that maintainability is increased. I'm spending more time learning JavaScript, maybe about the functional programming or whatever aspect of the JavaScript language, and not on a framework. I don't want to learn documentation of framework. It's constantly changing underneath me.
Do all these frameworks have two-way data binding?
None of them.
So how does that compare?
You developer, I'm sure you developer decide whether it's one or two.
No, I don't want to decide that. I want the framework
So
to manage this for me.
don't use them.
So I just don't understand how this can be compared to Angular or something like that. I mean, what are we comparing? I'm just
Yeah, you
writing
need to,
things up in my head.
you need to do one way and a second way yourself.
So you're saying this can be used
That's
instead
more
of
work.
Angular or
Evan,
along with
Yeah,
Angular?
no, instead of
I might
Angular.
have like.
Instead of Angular?
Instead of Angular, yeah, have Angular, throw it to the garbage and use those instead. That's
So
my,
how would I achieve two-way data binding? For example, it's like throw away Angular and I use this. I have to write it myself?
yeah, 2 lines. 1 line for like model to the view,
No,
1
no,
line
no.
from view to the model.
Time and money? No, absolutely not.
Thank you very much.
He has a
I accept your decision, but at least you're aware of it. You know that there's other options
Well,
out
I'm aware of those. I'm aware, I just don't understand how they compare.
there. Okay, so that's how we compare. You need to do it 2 lines instead of like whatever,
2 lines for data binding?
2 lines.
Instead of just
2 lines
doing
two ways.
it.
You don't always want 2 ways data binding. Sometimes you just want model to view. It's up to you.
Evan has a question.
Sometimes you don't want to. Why do you want always
What's
to?
the character? I think it's a colon. You put a colon in your thing in Angular and it just does one way.
Yeah.
I forget what it is.
That's great to know. Thank you for sharing. I mean, what can I say? That's how it is, you know, I mean.
Evan has a question.
Actually, I had a.
I'm
a
sure
comment
Angular
on
can
Steam,
do-
but
I'm sure Angular can do a lot of stuff.
One way bound expression. doesn't-
Sorry.
it's not
Evan,
important.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I wanted to hear what his question was.
Those are specific.
An article I read yesterday on
Guys, there's a question.
server-side rendering of JavaScript apps. An article I read yesterday on server-side rendering of JavaScript apps had an important point that might be relevant to speed, which is that we are all used to having very fast modern devices. Worldwide, this is not true. And that a huge number of people outside of the US load any JavaScript SPA on their device 30 seconds before they see anything, because that's how long it takes the framework to parse.
Yes.
So that is possibly a worthwhile point on making.
I would also just throw out that if your target audience is mobile, you maybe shouldn't be building a website for them. You should maybe be building a native app, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is if you're using, if the question is JavaScript performance, like then you're talking about like React is doing all your manipulation in JavaScript. So I can't imagine you're going to get a huge performance bump if you're relying even more on the JavaScript engine speed.
So
Yeah, you
that's
might as
a
well just
person,
write the
There's some
actual
nice
a bunch of
pre-rendering
frameworks.
stuff too, just pre-render everything on the server flat.
so loading time, right? Loading time is the time it takes for the JavaScript to load into memory. That's loading time. Mithril, which I really like, it's very, very fast compared to Angular, and even React is pretty slow. That's maybe the side of the framework has a lot of relevant to this aspect. And rendering time is the time that it's already in the memory until you see some stuff in the DOM, that the DOM is being displayed. And you see also here the differences with Angular. Right, so that's important, especially on mobile, especially on crappy devices, especially spotty connection. Even on laptop sometimes you don't have the perfect connection. So I think it's important. I mean, from
You
ITIL,
kind of have to analyze your target audience and what the percentage of them are on crappy connections. I mean, who you are developing out to. If your audience is in US or Europe, I don't think you'll ever have issues of them having like bad mobile devices or bad networks, or they have better networks than we do here. So I think it's all
Yeah.
about the type of app you're writing. And performance is not always a decision factor to begin with. we write the app first, unless like Spencer said, you're writing a game or something. Like if it's a website, you think of performance after the fact, later when you start profiling, after that, and analyzing and
I agree with you, and you're right.
Not upfront.
The way I see those new virtual DOM frameworks is not the performance. I care about it, but that's not my thing. I want just the login aspect. I want to write JavaScript. I want to get better at JavaScript. I want to get at different aspects of JavaScript, whether it's functional programming, right? And I don't want to get better at tools like Karma or.
What's wrong with Karma? Did you have that experience with Karma? Why would you want a better tool than Karma?
I'll show you the tools I'm using. I'm using simple tools that are maybe 100 lines of code. That's the framework I use. And all I'm doing is, calling a test function. That's all I need. And doing a simple assert.
With
For most
Karma,
part.
all I'm doing hidden save functions. So, how's it different?
I like the tools I use. I don't
Sounds
have
like a
to.
personal preference. Just,
Yeah, I mean,
I like flexibility. I like flexibility in
Flexibility in what?
in choosing different tools.
Why would
The
I want to
test-
choose
the
something
test-
that doesn't break?
The test that we're running and the tests in Angular, you can use any number of tools to run those tests. So getting hung up on the fact that
Yeah.
that many of us choose
Karma is just one example, but my problem with big frameworks is the complexity of the framework. I want to use simpler tools and also get performance, but the main thing for me is like maintainability. For me, maybe it's just the way my brain works, right? I just prefer to use simple tools that are closer to the metal. And the metal for me is JavaScript. That's it.
We write Angular apps that are simple and maintainable. And it's all about how you organize them and what kind of procedures and
Yeah, but
processes
I'm
you have within
thinking
your
of 2
team.
years from now, not just right now. I'm thinking also to a little bit long term. And if you use something that has a lot of, the API is big, has a lot of features, it tends to.
But I use that API.
The life expectancy is getting shorter the bigger the project
So,
is.
but the
That's what it
problem
is.
with the argument you're making here is that this is an architect's sort of decision to make, and you have to give the use case for them to decide. Let's say the use case was mobile app, right? And you had $10 million to build it, and it needed to be fast, then you would hire iOS engineers and Android engineers and Windows Phone engineers to build native apps so that it was super fast and awesome. But let's say you had $100,000, but you still had the same use case, then maybe you would go like with Ionic or something like that, just because it would get you on all those platforms on that budget, right? So it depends on the use case, and you always use the right tool for the right job.
Yes.
So I don't think anyone here says use Angular for everything and don't think about anything else, right?
Angular
I
is
don't think we're,
very productive, and obviously it's popular for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, we use it for the right use case.
The only thing I don't get about you writing all your own like little micro tools is so you leave the company and another programmer comes in and like now they need to learn all the tools and they've never seen any of them.
Yeah, but hopefully I chose tools that are very, very easy to like read
But you gotta learn the tools.
and modify and maybe pick better tools.
That's a really, really great point, because like I just took over a bunch of code that's really hard, doesn't have any comments, it's really hard to read. All the variables are one letter long.
My code.
It's just so fast.
It's not really hard, it's just he likes, that's.
I guess have no comment.
And it's
So-
and so, like, what do you,
Sorry.
like, that's just
Sorry, Ori.
ridiculous. You can't share the workload with that. You
Yeah,
can't
that's
share-
why you write verbose code, but then you minify it, you know? It's you write it verbose so people can fucking read it.
Yeah, it's really like totally.
Anyway, I think that 2 years from now, if I'm gonna jump into an Angular 1.3 project, 2 years from now, I would rather dive into a code base that was written in something lighter, that is focusing on JavaScript, and not an Angular project.
But there's
That's my
documentation,
opinion.
there's tons of documentation, there's like, wiki pages,
Sure.
there's like huge
I've
community.
been
there's
there with
affiliates,
Rails. I've
like-
been there with Rails. I had to maintain and
He's got a good
Like, I
point.
like the Google.
Sometimes
I don't want to
if
repeat
you
the Rails
if you
mistake.
divorce something for a long period of time and you come back to it, like we switched over about a year and a half to Node.js, and so my whole life for a year and a half has been, in Java land, JavaScript land, and it's been nice, good and bad, whatever. And then all of a sudden, someone spun up a project, and he went on medical leave, and this sucker is written in Ruby on Rails, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Motherfuckers. I forgot everything. Not everything. Everything.
Oh, wow.
I forgot everything.
And then you have like 80 gems the Rails in Gen, that nobody has maintained because it's like,
But that I
like Rails
remember.
2.3, you know?
But just like the basic syntax and the fact that because of the time that I had been divorced from this framework for so long,
Yeah.
it evolved. So he actually used Rails 4.0. So it wasn't even like I used to, which was 2.0. It was all these things, help about things that I'm like, what was the adder accessor? There's like, there's no such thing as adder
You know,
accessor.
new kids is finishing now the general assembly course, right? Those kids that will jump maybe on Angular 2.0, correct me if I'm wrong, scope is like being thrown out the window. They won't even know what the scope is. How can those kids maintain Angular 1.3? This whole architecture is changing underneath your feet.
See,
So-
but I would say that's a best practices problem, you know, in the organization, is that you didn't pick a version, you didn't stick with a version. If you wanted to move to the new version of Rails, you didn't have a plan to, okay, we're finishing all these projects in this
Sure,
version,
but
they're
you
gonna
gotta-
go into
you gotta
maintenance
deal with
mode,
those
and then
issues.
you write everything,
What
you know.
I'm saying is it's a reply to one of the issues that you raised, right? That, yeah, there's maintainability issue in both approaches. So you can't ignore the issues and the problem with your approach that you chose. You know, don't ignore it. That's what I'm saying. There's cons and pros for both approaches. I was supposed to talk about those guys deeply, but there's no time. I know what time it is, just, you know.
You have 1 minute.
I
to
would
make
say
a
that if
closing
you guys have
argument.
time, look up react.js just because
You can, but go for Mithril.
Mithril can be compared to Angular, and we are using plain JavaScript objects. Mithril, I just checked. It's using knockout approach that
Yes.
needs to define a property. This is no way. This is,
But you're locked in.
don't compare this. You're locked in. You
You're
can't
locked in
use
with Mithril?
plain objects. This is no way.
Mithril is.
You know what I mean? You're locked in. You're locked in.
So that is the guy who wrote Mithril, okay? Please read his what he writes if you want to see. He's diving into Angular and he's pissed with Angular. That's why he wrote Mithril, okay? And he's just tired of dealing with code base.
So we're going from a team to a single person, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a single
Come on.
person.
But we don't know that this single
I'm not
person.
saying-
I'm
I'm
pretty
not
sure he's
saying-
real
I'm
smart,
not saying that
but
you should choose
come on
Mithril.
now.
I'm not saying to choose Mithril, but you know, I'm saying look at what he writes because he will make you a better developer. That's what I'm saying. That's it. You don't need to use anything. You want to get better at your craft. Listen to smart people, and I'm listening. That's it. I didn't jump into Mithril. I'm working with you. Do you see any Mithril in our code base? No.
Very high.
No.
What if it's not about getting better at your craft, but about making better products? What if I don't care how good I am? What if it's just about producing better products? And I use tools that make better products faster, but I never get better as a programmer. Does that matter in the greater scheme of the universe?
I think it does.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it does.
Well,
I want
I
to
don't
get better at what I do and build good products.
I think you can do both. I think you can use frameworks that make you highly productive and get things done quickly, and also improve in your craft. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
Yes. And directives, as it currently is a helper to do that. That's why the API is so crazy, because you get to create wherever you want, and Angular itself is interpreting your creation. That's how they do it.
And that's also a quote from the guy, this single dude, right? It's designed to leverage generic knowledge as much as possible, as opposed to using a large amount of framework-specific terminology. That, and you know, there's nothing. That's basics about what the framework is. It's 1,000 lines. You can read this stuff in an hour, and all you see is inside those 1,000 lines, one function called M, and inside this function there's a bunch of keys. You can put keys in a function, right? It's just an object. And one of them is m.route and m.whatever, HTTP code. That's all it is. You just learn the framework, and it took 5 seconds.
Does it have
AngularJS
dependency
using-
injection? Does it have two-way data binding? Does it have a test?
You can do two-way data binding with 2 lines of code.
I have to add these 2 lines of code?
Yes. You do on click and you do your function. It's JavaScript.
I'm locked into.
And I don't agree with the decision to add promises. I'm not a promises guy, but you are. But he uses promises for making edits code. I don't agree with the decision to put routing in a framework. I think routing, I just npm installed whatever routes, you know. I will use the push state routing if I want, or an npm mode that's using the pound sign. I want to choose my routing library. That's me. But you know, fine. You know, I don't care. It's just 10
You can
lines.
choose UI router. NPM install UI router.
Yeah,
There, you got it.
I like it better than having routing in my But whatever, it doesn't matter. That's that's his decision. So I want to just show you how it looks like. Really good blog post. Go to Mithril, basically. Look at the blog section and look at the lesson that he learned from AngularJS. And what he doesn't like: awkward creep of JavaScript logic into templates, lack of proper error reporting, another semi-related problem, whatever, debugging, leaky abstractions, just bullet points, and performance. That's what the guy learned, right? That's why he developed it. Okay. And this is just showing that all the terminology that you guys know. I know filters, I don't know, it's ridiculous. It's meaningful for you guys, right? Everything here makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
Probably. Okay.
That's our mind.
So yeah. So basically in Mithril, maybe I'll go back to I don't care about this. So this is some of the design decisions. Why jQuery is so amazing? With jQuery, you have this guy, CSS, doing so much stuff for you, right? You do this stuff to set the color of one element. You also use it to set the color of an array of elements. It's very, very easy, right? You do .css. That's the only function, that's the only API that is exposed to you from jQuery. That's why it took over and crashed Prototype. Prototype was, very popular, and this jQuery came, right? Who knows about Prototype? That's some of the design decisions he makes, and he writes blog posts about this stuff. So you see in Mithril, you see M. M is a function that creates a virtual DOM for you. That's it. That's your view layer. It's a function that's called M. Whatever, example. That's it. That's a module in Mithril. It's a simple JavaScript object with one function, with one key called the view.
I don't want to learn that.
But that's basically within 2 hours. Within 2 hours, your learning is pretty much done. Yeah, you need to maybe go to the forums, there's IRC chat, there's people to talk to. 1 minute. So that's it. Right now, what this is going to be, generate a div for you guys. Okay, and you can do maybe I think like dot foo, and then you can give it a class. You can look. There's 2 array. It's JavaScript array. It's testable. I can do it. And if I don't like this stuff, I can use something similar to what.
What are those tick marks for? I was just
Sorry, what?
is that the markdown? Oh, sorry.
Oh, this It's,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
This whole thing is a markdown file. It turns into a slide.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
So yeah, and it gives you isomorphic. You can do randomness on the server side if you want. JSX, basically, that's if you don't like this syntax and you want to use regular HTML, you can. There's a build tool that you can run to do it for you. And that's Bootstrap. Bootstrap, you go here and see all the Bootstrap modules that was written with the framework. And that's terminology. See here, simple loop. 1, 2, 3, map. Just JavaScript function. I'm looping on all those A, and it creates the A element for me. So it's very easy to test this stuff. All the link tools are working on this stuff very easy because it's just JavaScript, and it's very performant. You don't need to learn anything new. Nothing new. It's just JavaScript.
This framework, is it creating I'm trying to figure out kind of what it's doing, because it kind of has like a prototype language, object language, but it's just what is it giving? What is it giving you? What the hell is it? I'm sorry.
This is an example. That's a module. Okay. See this up. That's my object. App.controller. That's my controller. And that's a view. And you know this stuff already. All I'm doing here is running all the pages, right? Control.page. It's an array. I'm running on my array. Then I'm creating this stuff. I'm running an array of links, and I can just click on the rotate links. Sorry, my laptop is weird. Rotate links, and we're going to rotate the links. Okay? That's this module, right? What do we have? We have single object, up. All up has is 2 keys, view and controller, right? Controller and a view. I'm passing this up to whatever element I want. In this case, it's the ID called example, right? And Mithril knows to run the view function. It passes the controller, instantiating the controller and passing it into the view. And it knows to run this view every time something changes. If you make an edX call, it knows to listen and to render this view. It will be very, very fast. That's all it is. Controller and view and this guy. And now they're working on having like a components. You can have here, instead of in the view, instead of button, you can have my component. It would just be something very, very simple. So they're working very hard the last 2 weeks on the Google Proof to come up with a very, very slick design. And they're learning from all the frameworks out there how to do it better than React or similar to whatever they're learning. So I'm ran out of time, but hopefully I open your eyes to ideas or maybe learning of other things or other tools, or maybe not. So that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that on live, we will have a March meetup. It's probably going to be in Pasadena. So thank you all for coming. We are done for tonight.
It's good. You guys were talking.
We're so hard to find.